The other reason why the South Park movie was the greatest gig ever, because not only was it unto itself the greatest gig, it suddenly put my name back in the mouths of the Broadway crowd. And a woman named Margot Lyon had just gotten the rights to Hairspray, the John Waters film. And everyone she went to said, who do you think I should get to do the score for Hairspray? And everyone had just come from the South Park movie and said, you got to get Marc Shaiman. You got to get Marc Shaiman. So that movie led me to the absolute dream come true, which was writing Hairspray. And because Scott had moved to L.A. with me, and I had really torn him away from the theatrical community of New York, and I was scoring one movie after another, and Scott didn't have much to do. Scott is quoted as saying in L.A. he learned how to drink and drive. So when Margot said, would you like to write the music for Hairspray? I was like, yes. And she said, who would you like to write the lyrics? I said, well, me and my partner, Scott. And I won't do it unless it's me and my partner, Scott.
And they acquiesced.
Well, she said, well, I don't know you guys as lyricists. I don't know. And I said, well, the South Park movie, it says additional music and lyrics. But, music by was what most people had ever seen. And she didn't, and also she was scared of, I think, of hiring a couple. Like, what happens if they fight? But yeah, so luckily she said, would you write some songs on spec for me to hear? And I was like, sure. And so Scott and I immediately started working, and the 4 songs we wrote are Good Morning Baltimore, Welcome to the 60s, Big Blonde and Beautiful, and I Know Where I've Been, which are still now kind of the 4 tent poles of that musical, which shows you what a fairy tale it was, in that usually the first songs you write for a show get discarded along the way as you start to discover what's needed. But the first 4 songs we wrote are still like those strong
planks
ones, yeah. And then that just became just the greatest dream come true.
What was after that?
Well, we wrote a musical with Marty Short. Marty Short, Fame Becomes Me, right, which was a one-man show but with a cast. And I was on stage with him. And that was a thrill, although it was tough because it was a kind of inside baseball kind of thing about how Broadway was full of all these one-person shows. And so Marty was spoofing the idea that he had a one-person show in him for all the trials and tribulations of his life because he's the happiest man on earth, so it's not really true. And then Catch Me If You Can was the next one Scott and I did, which,
was based on the film.
Yeah.
Who comes ringing your door? Does Spielberg ring the bell or somebody else?
In this case, Scott and I went to the drama bookstore to get a copy of Stage Door. Someone had asked us if we would be interested in writing a musical of Stage Door, which is the old Katharine Hepburn movie, The Calla Lilies Are in Bloom.
Yeah.
I hope all your readers and listeners will now...
You nailed it as far as I'm concerned.
Google Stage Door and Katharine Hepburn.
Once you have a Tony and an Oscar, you just can do anything.
Yeah. So we went to get that play, but there was a coffee table book out elsewhere in the drama bookstore of Catch Me If You Can about the making of it. And Scott looked at that and the pictures of Pan Am stewardesses and Leonardo DiCaprio and all the different disguises.
Very evocative.
And he said, I'd rather write a musical of that. And because I knew Steven Spielberg only through Marty Short Christmas parties, one year he brought his clarinet and I played Hanukkah, Oh Hanukkah, while him and Kate Capshaw, he played the clarinet and she danced. So I felt like I had worked with him. So I asked Marty to give me like a phone number or email or whatever, and I just wrote Steven Spielberg directly. I said, we have this idea to do a musical of Catch Me If You Can. So I completely didn't go through agents or lawyers. I just went straight to the man, and we got the rights.